Yoda vs. Emperor Palpatine may be the most important and deepest duel in Star Wars, only being rivaled by Luke vs. Vader and Emperor, or Obi-Wan vs. Anakin, that's interwoven into this duel that I'll have to resist talking about in order to focus on the subtle political world-changing depths of Yoda's confrontation against Darth Sidious. I won't waste too much time with plot context, as everyone should know the story of these movies at this point, but Order 66 has been initiated and most of the Jedi are being hunted down and killed after Mace Windu's failed attempt to arrest Emperor Palpatine. After Obi-Wan and Yoda figure out what's happened via Palpatine turning out to be the true Sith Lord behind everything, who initiated Order 66 along with turning Anakin to the dark side, Yoda concludes that they must end the Sith by killing Emperor and Anakin. Yoda, being the more powerful one, concludes that he himself must take on the Emperor, who's the most powerful between the two dark side Force users, despite Obi-Wan not wanting to have to fight his own apprentice who he sees as a brother.
I hear a new apprentice you have, Emperor. Or should I call you Darth Sidious?
A funny subtle commentary about all this is how violence is often the one and only solution when push comes to shove, when diplomacy doesn't work in instances that democracy and various legal institutions of various sorts fail. No different than the undeniable impact of Malcolm X, who pretty much said the same thing via the quote of him saying, "We'll get our rights, whether it be by the ballot or the bullet," as opposed to peaceful methods that don't work, such as Gandhi's peaceful methods of not taking violent action against British colonizers, which was never proven to be the sole reason why the British left, as they likely left for completely unrelated reasons. Violence being the answer is the very concept of the rebellion within the original trilogy, and it all started in the prequels because the Jedi let this happen under their nose. Hence Emperor's mockery, after his decades of gaming the system, has finally paid off.
I have waited a long time for this moment, my little green friend. At last the Jedi are no more.
Not if anything to say about it I have. At an end your rule is, and not short enough it was.
Now, after the hilarious start to their fight, we get more interesting details outside of political context, such as Emperor being the most scared here than he is in the entire franchise as he tries to run away, which I'll get to even more later, all in tandem with the personal depths of Anakin, who he's managed to turn to his side due to the Jedi's mishandling, misguidance, and social detachments from Anakin's personal needs, which is something that no Jedi, including Yoda himself, really heavily acknowledges outside of Obi-Wan's one line.
I have failed you, Anakin. I have failed you.
As said before, those Anakin vs. Obi-Wan scenes, which could get its own video, are interwoven with this Yoda vs. Emperor duel, which makes the two duels amazing in terms of narrative context. But anyway, here's the Yoda clip showing everything I just explained.
If so powerful you are, why leave?
You will not stop me. Darth Vader will become more powerful than either of us.
Faith in your new apprentice, misplaced maybe, as is your faith in the dark side of the Force.
But anyway, now we finally get to where the political themes really ramp up once the duel gets taken up to the Galactic Senate Chamber, a location that is obviously a stand-in for Earth's United Nations, as the fate of the whole world of Star Wars, the whole galaxy, lies in what happens in this duel tonight, which gets further emphasized by this extremely long shot of Yoda dueling the Emperor, as the worlds of the galaxy awaits to see who comes out on top, with consequences that will last over 2 decades. As you just heard, even the soundtrack ramps up to even more of an extreme as the vocal voices get louder, which emphasizes the stakes that affects an infinite amount of people. I'll play the soundtrack in isolation so you could really hear what I'm talking about. All this comes together and goes hard within the background of one of the many amazing lightsaber duels that the prequels are known for. Just look at the face of Yoda in this shot as the saber lock happens. The determination to right this wrong no matter what it takes, versus Emperor's face of being pushed to the brim, which I'll get into more later. But anyway, our next few moments after an Anakin versus Obi-Wan fight cut is Emperor, who seems to have created more distance between him and Yoda, as political themes go even harder with the symbolism of how Emperor decides to fight Yoda. Remember that thing I said about the Galactic Senate Chamber being a stand-in for Earth's United Nations? Well, now Emperor is making a mockery of that as he uses the Force to tear out hover seats used to represent planets, and then chucks them at Yoda, as Yoda desperately evades the thrown debris of the Senate to get to Emperor, who's laughing his ass off as he throws it. Now to get back into some more narrative context behind the entire prequel trilogy. Emperor has been behind everything in the Clone Wars, as he has influenced and funded both sides of the war, such as the Separatists as far back as the Phantom Menace. Also that the Galactic Senate would be in enough panic and distress over time to the point where they would end up granting Chancellor Palpatine emergency powers and control over the Senate, and then he ended up staying long past his term for what he claimed was for the sake of ending the war that he manufactured in the first place so that he would gain more political power and leadership. This was delved into by Obi-Wan's dialogue explaining the thoughts of the Jedi Council, hence them risking Anakin for this assignment. Although it was unfortunately too little too late, the concerns of the Jedi were warranted given what Palpatine went on to do, and Mace Windu's concern of it being too dangerous to put Anakin and Palpatine together was also a valid concern, as Palpatine ended up using Anakin's dreams of Padme being in danger to turn Anakin to the dark side. And Emperor ended up using the clone army and the political power he's obtained to end the Jedi while also spreading propaganda by using the justified Jedi assassination attempt to villainize the Jedi in the eyes of the public, which may sound a little similar to certain real-life scenarios of certain higher powers at play, using news to distract and blame the wrong people for problems they themselves create. But anyway, this all leads to the Emperor taking rights away from the people, because once any society gives up certain rights of various sorts, you may end up having to fight hard as hell to get them back, if you end up getting them back at all. The potential for real-world application is insane, and definitely deliberately done by George Lucas and his top-tier vision for what Star Wars represents, despite some dumb morons getting on his case. But anyway, I suppose this is the part of the video where some people want me to get political and turn this into a jab against the left or right by roasting some puppets like Trump, Biden, or Kamala, but it never really is quite that simple despite some random quotes taken out of whatever barely vocally said context that people and slop Star Wars content creators like to weaponize and strawman for varying reasons, like justifying some odd Disney Star Wars decisions that I don't care to fully delve into, where Lucas, within the context of feeling that Justice Palpatine manufactured the Clone Wars as an excuse to increase political power, George Bush used 7/11, which may or may not have been itself manufactured as an excuse for America to invade Iraq, which itself has nothing to do with the attacks. The negative behavior seen historically in politics and policies from Vietnam to Iraq and beyond, as Lucas pointed out, is far bigger than any one person or political party. Lucas's political commentary was subtle and thought-provoking rather than plastic and in-your-face, simply just there to rile people up and shock them. I mean, there is one consistent bad power at play that's been banned in over 100 countries and further caused a decline in Star Wars via a dirty deal which Lucas later regretted as a transaction with white slavers.
And you sold them? I sold them to the white slavers that take these things and okay, but
And that place gets bootlicked by both political parties, perhaps the right a little more, but I can't talk about it anymore as I've already said too much. Just remember, if I stop uploading, that I didn't force choke myself. But the point is, there can always be a horrible, evil power at play. Just don't get too tunnel visioned on your petty left or right, black or white bandwagons, lest you risk becoming controlled opposition, just like what happened to those in Star Wars. But anyway, with a lot of the main meat of the context out of the way, Yoda catches one of the chamber seats and chucks it right back at the Emperor, which I thought was a cool subtle nod that I interpret as Yoda still trying to hold fragments of that old system together as he throws it back at the person misusing it. Emperor evades the throne Senate chair and loses track of Yoda, and man, you can just see the look of fear in Emperor's face. That is something that only violent methods can bring out, as this is the closest Emperor has come to losing in the entire prequel trilogy, other than Palpatine's fight with Mace Windu that people often debate that Emperor threw to get Anakin on his side. Now, I know some pacifist nerd emoji may say, oh, well, the Jedi are peacekeepers, not soldiers. Which is true, but it's still an undeniable fact that the fear of consequences that are usually delivered via violence is needed to keep evil in line so that you could preserve that peace in the first place. It's why the Jedi come with lightsabers that cut through limbs like butter. But anyway, for one more piece of political plot context, efforts were made to end the war peacefully through negotiation, as shown in the many political scenes like Padme Amidala's conversation with Anakin, that alludes to such efforts being made, that were ignored throughout this entire movie.
Sometimes I wonder what's happening to the Jedi Order. I think this war is destroying the principles of the Republic.
Have you ever considered that we may be on the wrong side?
What do you mean?
What if the democracy we thought we were serving no longer exists? And the Republic has become the very evil we've been fighting to destroy?
I don't believe that. And you're sounding like a separatist.
This war represents a failure to listen. Now you're closer to the Chancellor than anyone. Please, ask him to stop the fighting and let diplomacy resume.
Don't ask me to do that. Make a motion in the Senate where that kind of a request belongs.
What is it?
Nothing.
Don't do this. Don't shut me out. Let me help you.
These scenes are also made all the more blunt with deleted political scenes Padme shares with other senators that show the rough origins of the rebellion. And these scenes honestly could have made it into the final cut or an extended cut at least, but either way, the message was clear enough in the final cut.
I understand your reservations completely, Senator, and I assure you the appointment of governors will in no way compete with the duties of the Senate.
May I take it then that there will be no further amendments to the Constitution?
I want this terrible conflict to end, just as much as you do, my lady, and when it does, I guarantee an immediate return to democracy.
You are pursuing a diplomatic solution to the war, then?
You must trust me to do the right things, Senator. That is why I am here.
But surely...
I've said I'll do what is right. That should be enough for your committee.
But in case you doubted me, when push comes to shove, violence is the answer when the nice ways or various forms of legal due process don't work, as shown within reality itself. Most forms of media outside of this list of exceptions sadly lies and tells people otherwise. Perhaps so that certain higher-ups can get away with the bad things that they are doing that don't or can't get legally punished. Maybe that's one of the subtle reasons why Hollywood or other powers that play made an effort to bury the prequel's reception more than any other piece of media by influencing illogical bandwagons and excuses for criticisms by socially oblivious losers who are socially dumb enough to think that it's illogical for a good-intentioned bad boy like Anakin to get play from a good-intentioned smart girl like Padme Amidala. As if real-life instances of stuff like that don't happen in real life to an even worse degree, as portrayed by other slept-on media that gets bashed for portraying reality a little too well. Full videos on this that you should check out, by the way. But anyway, at our last moment, Yoda makes his final determined effort after it seems that Emperor has lost its lightsaber due to Yoda likely being the better duelist, hence Emperor running away and using the Force exclusively like his Battlefront gameplay. Now we get to extend on this final moment where Emperor unleashes his most powerful blast of Force lightning that has ever been used in the movie, as he desperately tries to keep Yoda away. The power is so great that it isn't easy for Yoda to absorb it like he did with Count Dooku, who was a weaker Force user, who wasn't as fully dedicated to the dark side, due to his sympathy towards the Jedi. as is shown by him not having the Sith Lord yellow eyes that Maul, Emperor, and even Anakin at times had, or his actions of him trying to warn Obi-Wan about the Emperor being a Sith Lord, and pitched working together to overthrow the corrupted government by taking down the Sith, only for Kenobi's faith in a broken system and Jedi arrogance to shut down the very idea that could have saved the galaxy. Emperor gets cocky and thinking that he's overwhelming Yoda, only for Yoda to catch himself and adapt with a face of determination to do whatever it takes to kill this evil, which scares Emperor once again before the power becomes so great that it explodes in both of their faces. Now the sad moment after all of this is when Yoda loses after that explosion that sent both of them flying, but sent Yoda flying downwards because Yoda was closer to the edge of the platform when the explosion happened, as opposed to Emperor, who barely holds on to him, originally placing himself more center on the platform, as Yoda was the aggressor, as opposed to Emperor, who tried to run like he tried to do at the very start of the duel. Which sort of makes me think that this is a fight that Yoda would have won if Emperor stood his ground and fought fair, instead of running like he didn't do against less powerful Jedi like Mace Windu and his fellow Jedi Masters. But anyway, despite Yoda turning around and taking action and doing everything he was supposed to via his assassination attempt on this evil, he still lost. Similar to reality itself, you can do the right thing and still lose, as even correct violent methods might not work even if it's the best course of action. And the way he falls makes it sad, with the bang sound effects of him falling and hitting the main Senate chair, and then struggling to hold onto that Senate chair as an ear-displeasing scratch noise is made that really makes the despair sink in, especially when after he's done falling to the very bottom, his robe falls away from him, far beyond his reach, which becomes a waving flag of what he lost. The lines of Yoda after he barely escapes with Bail Organa's help really makes what I said about his loss quite blunt.
Into exile I must go. Failed I have.
And just keep more film context in mind, as everything that happens after this fight are far from sleeper moments, as we get the sad ending to Obi-Wan and Anakin's brotherhood, as Anakin gets damned and burnt by fate itself, as he loses everyone and everything despite his best efforts to change fate itself, only to still stay destined to be a part of fate, for the better or worse. We get the rise of the Empire that Yoda failed to stop because he couldn't kill the Emperor, as reinforcements arrived to back him up before he would be able to recover from the fall and get back to the Emperor to reattempt to finish the job. For anything that is significantly important has to be something that one is willing to fight, die, and sacrifice everything for. But man, what a top tier fight scene when you keep narrative context in mind. Unlike various other movies, this wasn't just a fight scene that looked cool. It objectively meant nearly everything I just delved into. And sure, someone could just enjoy this as a fight scene duel, as I still do as well, but unlike other fight scenes, there's something in the background alluding to something more, something deeper, something you could apply to the real world if you dare to think bigger instead of copying shitty regurgitated internet takes. But anyway, thanks for watching this bold, ambitious political video that I'm willing to not get any ad money on to get this message out there. As said before, check out my many other Star Wars videos or deep videos like this one Anakin and Padme video that I will remaster someday, or my Joker 2 review, and consider joining the Discord server if you want to have meaningful conversations that make more of fiction. But anyway, thanks for watching.